Hello everybody, it's Crazy Logics 007. Crazy Logics in the forum, and everybody else calls me Damon. Little Punch 30 here that I got that was not working, and so I had already popped it apart. It didn't come with a label. I got it from a buddy. It's got some, looks like overspray on it. I'll clean that up. I scraped on it a little bit. It just scraped right off, so just going to require a little elbow grease. It does have some scratches. Did not have a label, but I have labels, reproduction ones. I sell them for, I got them for all the old Punch and Punch HD amps except for the 100 HD. Tom has those, and I can direct you to him. But if you need a replacement label, they're cheap. They're cheap, so that Rockford lets me distribute them to people that are trying to restore these amps. I'm not trying to make monies off of them. I'm just trying to keep from losing money on them. So I do have a replacement label that way we'll put on here. But this is a little 30. It would not power up. I have already pulled the little driver board, but I wanted to go over it a little bit. Because if you're sitting here looking at it going, well, that's the plain Punch 30, but those look like HD boards in there. Well, yeah, you're right. The Punch 30, and see, this one is a Punch 30, was actually an HD design in its very first iteration. The Punch 30 HD, which if I pull the cover off here, you notice it's pretty similar, but it's got some different stuff. Like this chip is nowhere near like this chip. This output chip's got little surface mount capacitors. This one underneath here does not. This is the same driver board setup that is in the Power 100 HD. This driver board right here, these 4 caps leak, and you can see it on these. Get to focus so you can see where it's leaked and started eating that up. So I'm working on a replacement for those. I've got a 100 HD pulled apart that I've been working on and stuff, but I just had this little 30 here, and you'll notice it still says the Punch 30 amplifier on it, but the differences being the way the plugs hook up. The original 30 has the 4-pin Molex like this. 30 HD, oh, here it is, has a little 4-pin Molex like this, and it's 3 power terminals here. So, and you can see that written on there. So I'm going to put this to the side. Yes, they are both technically hybrid design amps. They just didn't call the 30. The cool thing about the little 30 is that it does not use a chip to do the power supply. This is actually a self-oscillating circuit. It brings in power. It uses these 3 FETs here, and this little bit of control circuitry, and extra coil lines on the transformer to help oscillate back and forth and switch these FETs on once it gets started. One FET will always start up before all the others and get it going, and when it makes a magnetic field, it makes a reverse magnetic field in the other little extra winding that's in here, which helps to shut off one FET and turn on the other, going back and forth. And so I'm really enjoying learning about that circuit. It's in some of the pre-Punch amplifiers before they were in this heatsink style. So the first gens and stuff and all that, it's in old US amps and a whole bunch of really old amplifiers back in the mid and late 80s that you guys might recognize. But anyway, this one was not powering up and everything, so because it's an oscillating design, I had to do a little bit of work and some research and figuring. don't know if you can see this, but I pulled the hybrid chip so I could get in here and start looking. And if I get my little magnifier, while I was drawing this sucker out, see if we can get it to focus. See this little chip right here? Now that focused on my finger, you can see that little bullet hole right in the middle of it. That diode blew. So I labeled out all the diodes and kind of where the caps were and stuff, and then on these boards, pointer here, on these boards, these dark spots, if you look at them, that like a dark spot like this right here, that is actually a resistor, and they tuned the resistor. If you look at it with your magnifier, they got little laser cuts in them to fine-tune the resistance of each one of these. So you got transistors, diodes, capacitors, one surface mount resistor, a couple of big diodes, but all these little things are actually traces and resistors all built in. And so it makes it really tough to work on them if the traces or resistors get ate up by electrolyte from capacitors, like on the HD boards for the 30, the 100, the 45, the 75, and the 150. So anyway, I looked up, looked all the markings on here, tried to find some pictures on the internet, wrote them all up, listed them all out to the side here. I have not finished doing the wiring diagram of this yet. And then figured out what their part numbers are. And if I have them, and I keep most of the stuff, I'll have them labeled and kind of drawn on them for stuff for old Rockfords like this. And so that little diode right here is a double diode. If you look at it, how I got it drawn here. So in the package, there's 3 pins on this little bitty tiny package, and there's 2 diodes built into there, and they go that way and that way. And so I kind of traced that little bit of the circuit, and it looks like if this is in and you hook up the power and you hook it up backwards, it's going to blow this little diode. So if you've got a punch 30 that doesn't work and you carefully unsolder this sucker and you find a damaged little diode, and you can test it with your multimeter, it is a BAW56. Is that right? It's an MBA or BAW56, yeah, is what I ended up. BAW56. Little double diode, and it probably happened when somebody hooked it up backwards. Now, the plug I have is the original green, but it doesn't have the original markings on it. You can get these plugs anywhere. I've got tons of them. They're a Phoenix contact. You can order them if you order electronic parts from most anywhere. You can order these. They just won't come with anything written on them. I've got tons of them. Like I said, I got black ones. I like using the black ones for installing, just because they don't stand out quite as bad as these bright green Phoenix contacts do. But anyway, yeah, there is no marking on the board here to tell you which one. So if you lost your original plug that had those stenciled on there, and you got you an aftermarket one, there's a chance you could hook it up wrong, and this should be right. I've looked it up. Should be negative, positive in the middle, and I know that because it goes through the coil and then the remote turn on, and I know that because I traced it over into the hybrid chip to start the hybrid chip up. So if you need to know, see if I can slip this in the case piece, kind of. If you're looking in here, your little punch 30 and you go to put your plug in, and the semicircles are here, a little semicircle. And so if you go to put that in, it actually goes closest to the edge is the negative, in the middle is the positive, and then the remote terminal is over on this side here. There we go. Make sure the camera focuses on there. So remote, positive in the middle, negative on the end. Hopefully that'll save you this same little problem. So here's the kicker, and this is really kind of the reason I wanted to make this video, besides showing you kind of what I do. You know, I just start drawing them. You can't get the schematics, unfortunately. They are lost. Rockford has looked for them for a bunch of people. I contacted a bunch of repair guys, a bunch of repair techs, and everything I already had that I had dug up was all that was available. So I've had to start drawing a lot of this stuff. It is what it is. You know, this is old. This is back from like 90 or 89 or something like that. So you can't expect everything to transition from paper to digital perfectly. But like I said, the whole point of this, is when you work on these HD boards, you cannot use leaded solder. The ceramic, the aluminized, I can't remember what exactly the ceramic is called, but if you use leaded solder on it, it will react with the board, and eventually the parts will fall back off. It's just not compatible with lead. Something in it mixes with whatever the substrates and everything else, they're done. And so I didn't figure this out. I was told this by a massively respected tech, and they figured it out because they screwed some up. So I have some Chip Quick that is tin, silver, and copper only. So it's lead free. I keep this one little roll just for working on the boards of this that are repairable. I'm going to fire up my soldering iron, and we're going to clean the tip really, really good. And we're going to replace that little diode and then solder it back in and try firing this little thing up. And let's see if we're successful. Like I said, this should be a pretty common problem, because a lot of people have got these and have lost their little plugs, and I'm sure a lot have done that. And this little sucker will pop. They'll probably pop their fuse because everything's backwards, and then when they finally get it hooked up right, they wonder why it won't work. And so I'm thinking this is all that's needed. Oh, my puppy dog just woke up from her nap. Sorry if it's a little loud in the background. It's just how it is. It's winter, and I gotta have a little heater out here in my garage because my garage is super, super drafty. Okay, I'll clean my soldering iron really good. I'm gonna try and bring you down here. Ooh. Oh, 2-second break. Let me let the dog out. Okay, back. One of these days, I'll have a proper video camera, and I'll be able to zoom down, and it'll actually be able to focus a little better when we have little things like this. But we're going to be working to remove that little chip right there. So cleaned our soldering iron of all the leaded solder really, really good, using a sponge and brass pad. I love the brass pads. They clean much better than most anything whenever you're trying to get rid of it. And we're just going to add solder. Let me crank up my temperature a little. It's lead free, it's higher melting point. I just want to get solder on there a little bit, and I'm going to add a little flux. It's not wanting to flow because it is old. In the board, the old solder is. When I do delicate work, important work, I use Amtech flux. I got some cheaper flux that I do when I'm doing big stuff that I'm going to be scrubbing real good and cleaning. But if I'm worried about it getting under chips and stuff, Amtech is a no clean, and so I don't mind that there might be a little residue underneath the chip. It's non-conductive, and it's a no clean solder or flux, and so I don't mind using it. Just gonna put a little on there. Now you could try to take this off with some hot air. And then again, remember, you got to be real careful. We're trying to add a little bit of stuff, and it's not wanting to come off there. I'm going to try it with dual soldering irons here. Hello, Ellie. Clean my other tip really well. A little solder on it. As soon as it heats up. Clean it again. Now just a dab of solder here. Alright. There we go. Two soldering iron trick always works. So I got rid of our old dead component. Little touch of wick. Clean up the old pads very gently. Here's our new one. I'm going to dab a little solder already on there, fresh solder. That old solder is old. Tip a little more. And more solder. I may have got it. Let me inspect it with my eye loop. Needs moved a little. I think. Let's see about adding a little more flux. I'm firing up the hot air. We're going to try it. Pray with me. We don't kill this thing, but I want it to float into position. That extra flux will help. I'm going to heat the whole thing pretty good here. This thing's going to soak a lot of heat, because that was one of the neat things about these hybrid boards, is they were really thermally well done. They will. It's a lot like the Mesha chips, like a layer of this stuff is in there, kind of thing. I have to crank up my hot air. Like I said, these things will soak quite a bit of heat. I could add a little. There it went. That's all I needed was to touch that top. I'll go ahead and readjust my hot air back down to what I like. About 360 Celsius. Alright, got that soldered up. We can clean it. Isopropyl alcohol, which is tough to come by right now. Always a minimum of 91%. Don't grab that 70% stuff. That's for cleaning wounds and disinfecting, not electronics. 91% is the absolute bare minimum. 99.9 is the best. I mean, that's what you get if you can. But yeah. Alright, we're cleaned up. Don't toss the old chip. The lead-free solder goes back in its baggie. Let's see if we can raise you up. One more maybe. All right. Now, if you take the board out and you realize you didn't realize which way it went back in, I'm going to show you, but I'll show you two things. One, you'll notice, let me get this to focus here. This pad right here, that's not wanting to focus, there we go, is square. And so that is the only one that's square, and it's square on the underside also. That is pin 1 on that Rockford amp. And this little chip, get more in the middle here and all. See that little one down in the lower left hand corner in gold? Bam, that's how this sucker goes in there. So I do want to make sure I got continuity before I go throwing that in there. And then based off of the little diagram I've got, I need to, in diode mode, go from here. I should, oh, you guys can't see nothing. With my red lead, which is going to be there, which is going to be the anode of the diode. Both of them. I should get a diode reading to here. I should get a diode reading to there. And then when I switch them, I should get a nothing. that's what I get. And so now we're fixed. Probably should have showed you that other one that was shorted out. I can't remember if it was blown open or shorted out. But we are going to make sure this is all clean. Get this back in its hole. Now on the circuit board connection here, you can use regular leaded solder. So I'm just going to clean up my tip. A little solder on there. I'm going to get these corners in so that this chip can't fall out. And here we go. Once again, that was the one. There's the one. Just kind of double checking more for myself. There, I pointed it all out and I'd have pulled over the real goober moment. I wouldn't have. Just get this soldered in. And there we go. There it is. The old toothbrush, don't use it on your teeth, that's kind of yucky. Need a little bit of isopropyl alcohol on here. A little bit scrub. Just absorb up any of that flux core residue. Now, these old 30s, the heatsink was a hard black anodization. And they did not have an insulator between the FET and, or the transistors in this, plus FETs, and the back of these metal cases. They use that hard anodizing. It is, and there is a little bitty oh, there it went. That's not what I wanted to have happen. I was getting the little thermal thing. Anyway, they use the hard anodizing. It becomes makes the aluminum puts a thin coat of non-conductive material on it, and so it can get scratched off by the backs of the metal, like when you do something stupid like I just did like that. It is pretty hard, but it can get scratched off. So anytime you have one of the old Rockford amps that uses the hard anodizing as the insulation between the back of the metal FETs and transistors to the heatsink case, after you clamp it in, you need to check from the metal of each of the back of these transistors to the heatsink to make sure that there's not a short circuit. If there is, you're going to have to come back in and either use mica insulators, or you can use the high quality Kapton tape as an insulator. And so we have, well, the dog is either wanting more in her food dish or water dish, one of the two. We have to take another pupper break here in a second. So these clamps are just aluminum bars with a silicone rubber insulator, and you want to be really careful when you clamp them down that you're making it even. So I get them all started, and then I just barely run the middle one down enough to kind of draw it up. I mean, not hardly even finger tight. And I do the same on each end. We don't want to bow one side really bad. A little better look here, because we want even clamping pressure. It's hardest on this side with just 3 FETs or 3 transistors / FETs. So I'm going to tighten it up good there. Not super tight. Tighten it up there. And I'm just watching to make sure I'm not bowing the aluminum too much. I want even pressure pushing back on these. Now you'll notice I didn't add a bunch of thermal compound. Remember I said it's got some overspray or something on it. I'm going to pull this back out after this, and I'm going to scrub on to clean it up and everything. Nobody wants to watch me just scrub on it, probably. Let me know in the comments if you want to watch me scrub it. I try to, include that stuff to show all the real work sometimes in a fast forward clip, but you can only show that so many times and people go, oh great, he's showing us more scrubbing bubbles, and what they want to know about how electronics work, how to repair it, what things to look for, what to be careful about, whatever little bit of knowledge I can pass on, because I'm not an expert on any of these things by any stretch of the imagination, but I am trying to pass on everything I've learned to help some guys out, and hopefully I'm going to give that a little bit of good tighten there. I don't want to go too tight, and like I said, I keep watching to make sure I'm not bowing. I just want even pressure. Like I said, I wanted to explain this, and this is probably a pretty common error in these lamps. And then I want to show you this, because this is very important. You go to the back metal tab of each of these FETs and find a place where some of the aluminum's, the paint's been chipped off, and kind of dig your probe in there. And you can see that on this aluminum it's going to beep. And we want to go to the back middle of these transistors and FETs and touch each one. As long as we get no beeps, we have no continuity, and that finish is still good. So, give me a second to get my wires hooked up, and we will plug this little sucker in and see if it plays. Okay, I've got the gain set about midway, and so we'll maybe have to turn the radio up a little bit here. I don't know, we'll see. Got a little music playing, we got power. Let's see if she powers up. And I don't know if you can see that. That's power out, power up. So let's see if we have music. There we go. We got music out of that channel. There we go. Music out of that channel. We'll turn it down just a little. And brown and orange should be bridged. she's a working. Like I said, I wanted to make sure everybody kind of knew about that. Once I discovered that, I thought, oh, and I did a little tracing on the circuit. It became apparent that somebody had reversed those, and that's what popped that, because that ends up making a circuit right to ground. So this little sucker, I've got the power off, so we can unplug this. I've got the side screws there. We'll be able to put the bottom cover back on. I've got the nice harness, the plug, and it'll get a new label. The label, the white is just a backer, and so I will slip that onto there, and we will have working Punch 30. If you have noticed, there is some kind of gaps. I've said I'm going to make certain videos and stuff. A lot of that stuff I've made. I've got a ton of footage because I do this for a hobby. When I have spare time, you know, I got a full-time job, wife and kids, dog and a cat, all that kind of stuff. I get a lot of footage recorded. It's the sit down and edit it time to make it worth the darn, and my videos are terrible. But yet, it still takes me a lot of time just to get them to terrible, whereas they were gosh awful before, like you wouldn't believe. And so definitely have a lot of this stuff, and it'll trickle out, and I'm just trying to get out the ones I can get out the fastest. This was hopefully a quick win, and it goes with a series, so there's some others that should be coming. Like I said, a lot of it I have footage already done for. It's just a lot of editing, and hopefully I can sit back during the Christmas holiday and get some editing done, and maybe get a few videos queued up for everybody to enjoy during the holidays. By the way, happy holidays, and comment if you got any questions about this or the HD. That HD needs fixed, I think, too. Obviously, its output board has got all the leaky stuff. I may have to build a whole new board for it. But ask questions down in the comments. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your grandma, tell everybody. I'm up to like 750 subscribers, which is crazy. I didn't think there was 750 people that wanted to listen to a goober, but I appreciate you guys. Really, I do. It's a lot of fun, and it makes me a better repair person, and makes me understand these things better if I got to explain it, or try to explain it to the best of my knowledge, and it helps my understanding. They say you truly understand something if you can teach it or explain it, and so this is just part of my whole system to help myself too. It's pretty cool. So like I said, like, comment, subscribe if you can, all that YouTube crap, and thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.